Hello everyone, this is a video introducing the contest issues around the Rhodes Statue in Oriel College, Oxford. First, I will briefly introduce the Rhodes Statue to you. The Rhodes Statue in Oxford was erected in 1911 on the Rhodes Building at Oriel College, Oxford, England. Beneath the Rhodes Statue is an inscription meaning by means of the generous munificence of Cecil Rhodes. There are 7 life-size statues on the building, so besides Rhodes, 2 are statues of King Edward VII and King George V, while the other 4 are the former heads of the Royal Oxford College. It is noteworthy that the statue of Rhodes is at the highest of the 7 statues, even above the 2 kings. So why did Oriel College erected the Rhodes statue? Because Rhodes donated money to Oriel College to build the Rhodes building. In his will on his death in 1902, Rhodes left an endowment of 100,000 to Oriel College, 40,000 of which were used to build the new college building, now known as the Rhodes Building. Rhodes donated most of his remaining estate to establish the Rhodes Scholarships and the Rhodes Trust for the patronage of the imperial education, and Oxford University benefited a lot from his estate. As a token of appreciation for Rhodes' generous gift to Oriel College, the Rhodes statue was erected at Oriel College when the Rhodes building was built. So, what happened to Rhodes statue recently? In the recent decade, however, the Rhodes statue in Oxford was pushed into controversy by the Rhodes Must Fall campaign for its removal. So let's review the timeline of the controversy surrounding the Rhodes statue. Firstly, in April 2015, the University of Cape Town in South Africa removed the Rhodes statue in Cape Town from its campus as a result of the efforts of the months-long Rhodes Must Fall campaign. The success of the Cape Town campaign inspired students in Oxford, who began the Oxford Rhodes Must Fall campaign in April 2015. In November 2015, as the campaign expanded, a petition with nearly 3,000 signatures wanting the Rhodes statue to be removed was presented to Oriel College. In response, in January 2016, Oriel College decided not to remove this statue, but to add a historical context to explain why it is there. With the re-emergence of the Black Lives Matter campaign in 2020. In June 2020, Oxford's Rhodes Must Fall campaign again pressured Oriel College to remove the Rhodes statue. The Independent Committee of Inquiry set up by Oriel College stated in May 2021 that they supported the removal of the statue, but Oriel College claimed that due to regulatory and financial challenges, they would not remove the statue, but rather take measures to contextualize it and improve educational equality for students. So, in October 2021, Oriel College placed a public notice under the Rhodes statue. So it is shown like this to contextualize the Rhodes statue. So as you can see, it is put under the Rhodes statue. However, after the new measures were implemented, both pro and anti-removal sides continued to voice their dissatisfaction with the treatment. In other words, the controversy over the removal of Oxford Rhodes statue has not been fully resolved. This video was therefore produced to explain the controversy surrounding the Rhodes statue to the public in detail. So, what kind of person is Cecil Rhodes? Cecil Rhodes is often viewed from 2 different perspectives. The first is that Cecil Rhodes made great contributions as a politician, a mining magnate, businessman, and empire builder during his short life from 1853 to 1902. Rhodes came to South Africa in 1870, he won election to the Cape Legislative Assembly in 1881 and became increasingly influential in the Cape Parliament, eventually becoming Prime Minister from 1890 to 1896. In the 1890s, Rhodes ran both the De Beers Diamond Company and the Gold Fields of South Africa. His company's monopoly on diamond production also making him one of the richest men in South Africa. Rhodes also established the British South Africa Company, which extended British control and colonized Zimbabwe and northern areas from 1980s onwards. So there is no doubt that Rhodes' influence on the South African region in the 1890s were rarely equal, and also he contributed greatly to the British Empire. In addition, he generously donated the huge fortune he had accumulated to sponsor education in the UK. However, Rhodes was also widely criticized for his actions and statements in South Africa. By analyzing Rhodes' statements, critics have concluded that he was an ardent British imperialist and a white supremacist who asserted the racial superiority of the British. Rhodes once said, "To be born English is to win first prize in the lottery of life." During his colonial rule in South Africa, Rhodes clearly believed that white Englishman was superior to all others, and that the natives of Cape Town were savages and subject race. Thus, during his times as the Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, he used his political power to confiscate the land of many blacks and also to exclude many blacks from the right to vote, deepening the racial segregation in South Africa. Meanwhile, during the conquest of Zimbabwe in the 1890s, Rhodes and his British South Africa Company abused extreme violence, plundered the local cattle and grain reserves, used Maxim guns indiscriminately, and killed over 20,000 Africans in total. So these are two sides of evaluations around Cecil Rhodes. So let's move on to review the debates around the Rhodes Statue. So the first debate was over how to evaluate Cecil Rhodes. The activists of the RMF campaign in Oxford strongly condemned Rhodes for his actions and ideas as racist and white supremacy. However, the Prime Minister Johnson and many others argued that times are different. So it was inappropriate to judge a figure like Rhodes, who lived over 100 years ago, by the moral standards today. In response, the pro-demolition scholars cite cases of criticism of Rhodes from his time, showing how his use of extreme violence and racist policies were condemned at that time. But those who stood up for Rhodes then claiming that Rhodes' policies were more tolerant than his followed rulers. Also in response, the pro-demolition scholars argue that not as bad as others or not so bad doesn't mean that it is not bad. Rhodes' colonial and racist policies are exactly wrong. So the debate continues between the two sides over the use of Rhodes' wills. Supporters of Rhodes suggest that Rhodes used his wills to a large extent for public purposes, and the money Rhodes left for Oxford has continuously had a positive impact. But critics of Rhodes, on the other hand, argue that Rhodes used political power and wills to accumulate vast amounts of land for his own private use. And the Rhodes Scholarship was also established to preserve and consolidate the British Empire, to expand the Anglo-Saxon influence and educate future colonists. The second debate is about the significance of Rhodes Statue's presence in the present. So those who calling for the removal of Rhodes Statue feel that such a prominent presence of Rhodes Statue would make people feel that he's authoritative, noble, and worthy of admiration and gratitude. If not glorifying Cecil Rhodes, then indifferent to the global harm he has caused. They also argue that the high position of the Rhodes statue implies that the donations he made overweight the racist and imperialist basis of how he wielded and maintained his power and wills. In addition, some black Oxford students have expressed it that every time he passed Rhodes statue, it reminds him of the painful history of black people. So how do you feel when you walk past Rhodes Statue? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below the video. The third debate focused on the implications and meanings of the removal of the statue. Proponents of retaining the statue raised strong concerns about the consequences of its removal. They argue that removing Rhodes statue is a distortion and rewriting of British history and could expose the British to the risk of collective amnesia. In response to this argument, supporters of removing the statue argued that the British history is not only the history to those with power. The voices of those oppressed by racism and imperialism have never been taken seriously before. So, to overturn Rhodes statue is therefore not to overturn or distort history, but to attempt to correct and further recognize a more impartial and comprehensive history. In this regard, both sides of the argument lies not only in the symbolic significance of an act, such as the removal of Rhodes statue, but also in the form in which they perceive the British history. Those who support the retention of the statue place greater emphasis and recognition on Britain's glorious imperial past, while those who support its removal takes a more reflexive approach to history, emphasizing the importance of the voices of those oppressed by imperialism and racism. So how do you think we should view Britain's history of colonization and empire? Feel free to leave your views in the comment section. In addition, other scholars who do not fully support the removal or retention of statue have expressed two other concerns about the removal of the statue. So first, they believe that retaining the Rhodes statue in an appropriate manner would facilitate discussion and reflection on British imperial past. Secondly, they argue that simply removing the statue may help Oxford and the UK's leader to avoid their responsibility to redress historical injustices. So by removing the Rhodes statue, Oxford and Britain were able to make the real issues of institutional racism and ongoing colonial inequality more carefully hidden and invisible. So, do you think that these concerns about the removal of the statue are justified? What should we do with the Rhodes statue? You are very welcome to leave your solutions in the comment section. So that's all for today's content. Thanks very much for your watching, and you are also welcome to reflect and comment on this question. Thanks so much. Bye.